Good evening and welcome to tonight's debate featuring the candidates for Erie County Executive, the Republican nominee Brenton Davis and Democratic nominee Tyler Titus. For the next hour, they'll be answering questions on the biggest issues facing Erie County and why they should be elected to lead the county for the next 4 years. Those questions will come from me and our two other panelists, Jill McCormick and Scott Bremner. We'll also be including questions tonight submitted by viewers on Facebook. We want to start with opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make their case. There was a coin toss before coming on the air tonight. The winner got to choose whether or not they went first or went last this evening. Brenton Davis won the toss. He's chosen to have the last word. So now it's time to begin with the opening statements. First one to Tyler Titus.
Hello, my name is Tyler Titus, and I am the Democratic nominee for County Executive. My story starts 45 miles south of here, where I was born into rural poverty, where I watched as my family struggled to meet the needs of us kids. I watched as my dad, who was a Marine, returned back from overseas to find work. I watched as my mom, who tried to find work as a young mom with just 2 kids. I watched my stepdad, who had dropped out of school in 10th grade, take hardship on his body as he was a logger. Then I went on to watch them open our house up to become foster parents, and I watched them try to meet the needs of those kids who came in who had gone through things that many of us can't even imagine going through, and how they struggled to make sure that those kids had access to a good therapist, to a good doctor. That's what led me to this point. That's what brought me here in my desire to step into a leadership role to public service. Tonight I'm going to lay out the vision of building an economy that puts working class families first. I'm going to lay out how we can build a healthier, safer community through investing in our human services. I'm going to talk about how we need to make sure that no matter where you are, who you are, or what you have access to quality education. And I'm going to explain how my time on the school board, my time at the county government, has brought me to this point where I'm ready to step into the role as your next county executive.
2 minutes now to Brenton Davis. Brenton.
Good evening, Erie County. I'm Brent Davis, the Republican nominee for Erie County Executive. Over the last 10 months, I've been on the campaign trail covering Erie County, and I've racked up over 22,000 miles. That equates to nearly 9 times from New York City to San Diego inside of Erie County, listening to your concerns. I've stood on thousands of porches and had thousands of conversations. I've met with hundreds of businesses. But tonight, this isn't about the 2 candidates here on the stage who have very different plans and very different agendas. This is about you. This is about your families. This is about your kids and grandkids who are leaving in droves. Since the last election, we've seen 10,096 residents leave Erie County. We're in dire straits, but we're only just beginning. The Erie County Executive role is an imperative role, and it's critical. We're coming out of the pandemic. Our economy is in rough shape, and we need someone with the skills, the managerial skills, the leadership skills, and the educational skills to get this job done. I've got over 21 years in the military, serving overseas. I most recently was a senior career management officer in charge of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, where our battalion managed over 4,500 soldiers' careers. I've got a master's in community and economic development from Penn State, and I have 16 years actually creating real-world jobs, both union and non-union. My construction company has a signatory agreement with the 603 Laborers Union, and I enter this race with uncommon union support, where we've racked up 6 labor unions that support our campaign. But again, this comes down to one thing. This comes down to the why. My why is for my 94-year-old great aunt, sitting at home watching this debate, and she has a difficult time staying in her home. And I look forward to laying out my plan and proving to you that I'm the next Erie County Executive. Thank you.
All right, now it's time to begin the questioning. After each question, each candidate will have up to 90 seconds to respond. Each will also be given up to 30 seconds for rebuttal if they choose. Now, the first question tonight to Tyler Titus. And Tyler, I want to ask what your plan is for managing Erie County as we continue really in the midst of this pandemic, day after day, including tonight on the news? People hearing that we have over 100 new cases of COVID-19. How do we even get from here to post-pandemic under your leadership?
This is a great question. As the next county executive, I would oversee the health department. And through overseeing the health department, we will follow the science and making sure that we uphold what we're finding. And as the science evolves, so does our plan. One of the first things that we need to do on this healing process to get out on the other side of this pandemic is make sure that we get as many people vaccinated as possible. We know that the vaccine stops the virus and can end this pandemic. We need to make sure that we're getting access, that we're getting out into these rural areas, and we need to make sure that whoever sits at that helm of the county executive role is following the guidance of the Erie County Health Department. What we know is that vaccines work. What we also know is that my competitor here has also stated publicly that he won't get the vaccine, that he will never get the vaccine, and has used his platform to spread misinformation about the virus, which has put many of us in this county at jeopardy, put our small businesses at risk of having to close down, and put students and schools at risk of not being able to stay open. In order to keep Erie County moving forward, we have to be responsible leaders, we have to be accountable to those we are representing, and we have to make sure we're doing everything we can to stop this virus.
Mr. Davis.
Well, first off, it would appear that my opponent's research is about as lacking as his financial literacy. I first received the vaccine in March on military duty, and I received the booster at the VA at the beginning of September. But this isn't about, we've had enough division. Our community, our nation, we've had enough division. We've saw our nation torn to shreds from January 6th and on. We need a county executive that's going to bring people forward. I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with childish banter and address ads that are 100% fallacious and stretch the context. As your next Erie County executive, I would agree. We need to follow the data and we need to follow the science. With a master's in economic development, I've learned that data is important. But also as a leader, I understand that each of these line items and each of these people that are attached to these programs and money, we need to look at it, we need to analyze it, and we need to follow the experts. So as your next Erie County executive, my master's is in economics. I'm going to rely on the professionals to do the health department, make the right decisions, and follow the data. Thank you.
I'll take my 30-second rebuttal, please.
Sure. Go ahead.
Rebuttal to Mr. Titus.
I think it's important to note here that Mr. Davis said that I'm engaging in false and childish banter. Accountability, responsibility is not childish. It's not false. Mr. Brenton stood in front of a group of his supporters at one of his events in August of this year, stated on record, I'm not vaccinated and I will never get the vaccine. He has again used his platform to spread misinformation, to undermine and to mock the seriousness of this pandemic.
Would you like your 30 seconds for rebuttal, Mr. Davis?
Yes, Mr. Laffrey, I would.
Okay.
Again, I think the most alarming thing here is a bunch of videos and ads that you see on TV taken out of context to an alleged video or audio or however it was obtained, surreptitiously recording private citizens at private events and taking questions out of context and throwing blips up on TV. I think the major thing here is dirty campaign tactics and taking things out of context. Erie County residents deserve to know the truth. I have the documents and I'd be happy to provide them.
Okay, this question is for you, Mr. Davis. This was from Facebook, and I want to ask, you both say that you will create jobs if elected. Exactly how would you do that?
So my plan, my blueprint for Erie County's comeback begins with the NICE acronym, N, which stands for no new taxes, no new fees. I for innovation and infrastructure. C for collaboration, and E for education. That is my plan, and that's how I look forward to laying these out for you to show you how Erie County can and will be successful under the Davis administration.
But exactly how will you create jobs?
So the plan to create jobs relies ultimately upon the private sector. Government doesn't create jobs. As a business owner has created jobs for over 16 years, the private sector must and will lead the way. What we need is for government to support the initiatives, to provide public-private partnerships, and collaborate in ways in which we've never seen before. But ultimately, the best thing that the government can do for my business is to remove obstacles and get out of the way.
Okay, and Dr. Tyler Titus, rebuttal?
A rebuttal or the full 90
I'm
seconds?
sorry.
Okay. As your next county executive, I come out very strongly in support of the community college. What its ability to do and turn around and workforce and to engage in economic development is undeniable. As I've talked to small business owners, large business owners, those who are wanting to come to the county, who haven't yet come to the county, one of the first things they bring up is we don't have a talent pool. We don't have a base in which we can tap in right now who can pivot quickly. And that is why I've been strong and adamant that the community college come here, stay here, and be supported. I would say that's not correct. The county government does provide jobs through the contracted providers that we hire that provide human services, through the frontline workers that we have right now that we can build up, that we can support. In addition, when I'm out talking to small business owners, one of the things that they are saying is they're having a hard time getting staff back to work. So we can help keep jobs going and moving forward and created by providing things like access to quality childcare, to making sure there's transportation to get to those jobs. By investing in renewable and green energy sources, we're bringing lots of job here while protecting our environment. The infrastructure bill that's being voted on right now by the federal government has the opportunity and lays out a moonshot moment for us to create lots of good-paying, family-sustaining jobs right here in Erie County.
Now, Mr. Davis, your rebuttal.
Again, government doesn't create jobs. Government creates liabilities in which taxpayers must pay for. Ultimately, every job that government creates, there must be tax dollars allocated to that. It's important that we remove these obstacles from private businesses. We can provide program, we can provide services, we can provide support. But the best thing that the government can do is not tell a business owner what they need or what they must do, but create a business environment which is fertile for investment, not anti-corporation and not anti-business.
I'd like my rebuttal for that, please.
Yes, you do. Dr. Titus, go ahead, please.
I take personal offense to calling a child abuse investigator or case manager a liability. They are out on the front lines every day making sure the most vulnerable in our community are supported, that they are seen, that they get access to the services that they need. Our healthcare workers at the healthcare department have been on the front lines of this pandemic, making sure the vaccine is out there, that the straight and good information is receiving those who need it. Our county does create jobs, and it creates wonderful jobs that are supporting our community.
All right, this question, I believe, is for Dr. Titus. We look at different ways in which we can try to get people vaccinated. And one of the things that the county has done is offer $300 for employees to get their shot. Is that something that you would support or not? Or do you believe that it should be a term of employment where if you don't get your shot, you could potentially lose your job?
I understand the approach that the county used here and the thought to be a positive versus a negative in a punitive manner. I think by spreading the correct information, ensuring that people have access, and by the way, if anybody does need access, to please reach out to our campaign. We'll help you find a spot where you can get to the vaccine and get to the transportation to the vaccine, that we can make that happen. I do think that county employees should have the vaccine. I also think that we need to make sure we're supporting and not punishing those who don't have access or for whatever reasons aren't able to get it now. But I think we can work as a county in tandem with the private sector to make sure that we're getting the vaccine out there, that we're following the mandates, that we can ensure that the stop of this spread is happening.
Mr. Davis, your response.
So I just want to touch back on what my opponent said about people being liabilities. If my opponent spent any time looking at a business spreadsheet or a financial budget, you'd know that there's two columns, liabilities and revenues. That's very clear. But as far as the $300 incentive for getting vaccinated, I would oppose that. The folks at the county government kept on working from home, didn't miss a single paycheck, and a lot of them served on the front lines tracing COVID at the health department. But ultimately, I think that $360,000 could have gone a long way for folks that were truly in need. I wouldn't support any kind of mandate. I think we need to educate, don't mandate, and I think we need to inspire and not impose. Erie County, we should know that most folks are averse to anything that we're told to do. That's why we need to inspire and not impose. That's how we'll combat this pandemic under the Davis administration.
Dr. Titus, any rebuttal?
I can't emphasize enough how important it is for us as a community to get out and get this vaccine. This is how we make sure this pandemic stops. This is how we keep small businesses open. This is how we keep those in nursing homes, our vulnerable population, safe. This is how we protect our neighbors. This is how we protect our families. This is how we keep schools open and students in those classrooms. Our community deserves to keep moving forward. We need to be accountable and responsible leaders in encouraging people to get vaccinated.
Mr. Davis?
So I'd like to take this opportunity for once, which I believe should have been done on the Biden-Trump stage when the pandemic first gripped our nation, is to set politics aside when both Democrat and Republican can sit here and encourage the vaccination. Despite the TV ads, despite the misinformation, I believe that anybody that could and can, under the recommendations of their doctor, safely get this vaccination, they should get that. So I think we should set politics aside, and despite whoever wins this election, we need to come together and protect our communities.
Next question to Brenton Davis first. We're going to talk about the community college now. Your opposition to the community college is no big secret. You have pledged that under a Davis administration, no taxpayer money or gaming money would be used to support the community college. But isn't that really county council's decision? And how would you plan to keep that pledge?
That's a great question, Sean. Thank you. So ultimately, the county executive cannot be successful without the support of council. I've worked very hard over the last 5 years to earn the support of members of council, but also to build coalitions across the state and through the region. I think it's no secret my support or lack of support for the community college in the beginning. It was simple. Any great idea, no matter how much it could be, whether you need snow tires on your car or whether you need a roof over your head, a new roof, what have you, until you have a plan to pay for it, it's just a great idea. We've got people coming out of a pandemic. Families are suffering. We can't tax society into prosperity. So I look to work with Senator Laughlin and other state representatives to get some tax incentive financing, whether it be a NIS or a CRIS, a mechanism to actually pay for this. I meet every week with folks that get gaming revenue, and through these programs, they rely heavily upon that to keep operating. We can't keep slicing up gaming revenue. It's finite. We need sustainable revenue. I've given my support to Dr. Gray and the Erie County Community College to support this initiative moving forward. I don't want to see anything in Erie County fail. Thank you.
Dr. Titus.
The community college is an essential element to moving Erie County forward. Its ability to pivot, to meet the demands of jobs, the support it has received from the chamber lets us all know that the business community is behind it and has been behind it. We've had over 800 applicants to the community college, with the median age, the average age of the person applying being 34. That lets us know that we have long needed this to happen here in Erie County. My opponent has said that he will defund this lunacy in 2022. This is the second time on stage already tonight that he has flip-flopped on an answer. He made his political launch with a desire to end the community college. That is what he ran on and what he stood on. He has used his platform again to spread misinformation and disinformation about COVID. But tonight now he's saying he's been vaccinated since March. There is too much at stake in Erie County right now, especially with the community college, to have somebody who's going to use his entire beginning of why he wanted to run to say he's going to defund this, self-fund a PAC against it, or to start a petition against it. We cannot take that risk. We have to make sure that this is a success. Our county deserves this community college. We deserve it.
Mr. Davis, your rebuttal.
So again, I'm not going to get involved in childish schoolyard stuff. I mean, this is a chief executive position, and I think we need to be professionals. And as a business owner and a military leader, I've learned that you don't run into a firefighter, run into a burning building, what have you, without the proper information. Much like COVID, as my opponent mentioned, the conditions have changed. Very well as the landscape with the community college has changed. You can't set your feet in concrete on an issue, or you're going to get left behind. It's foolish. It's a fool's errand. And simply, if a bad investment were to take place with the county, we'd ride that all the way to the scene of the crash. I'm committed to community college and career pathways for jobs that exist.
And your final rebuttal. Dr.
Accountability, transparency, responsibility of leadership, and our words and our platform is not childish. Standing up here and making sure that we understand the difference between the two candidates on this stage, what they have worked for, the leadership that they have shown consistently throughout the county, the work that they have done and will continue to do, again, is not childish. That is accountability and that is responsibility.
This question is for you, Dr. Titus. It's been said there's been mudslinging back and forth from both camps. There's been questioning if whether or not you're ready for the job. Why are you ready for this job?
I go back to where it all started for me when I was 16 years old and my parents became foster parents, and I watched the struggle that they went through to make sure the kids in our house had access to the services that they need. That drew me to work for the county, where I started as an intern, worked my way up to become an administrator, and I served there for 8 years, sat on hundreds of couches throughout our counties and worked with family members to break down the barriers. In the worst moments of their life, I sat and helped build up trust, helped get them back into the workforce, to overcome addiction, to struggle through generational poverty. I was there. Then I went on to serve on the Erie City School Board for the past 4 years, where I was unanimously voted as the president this past year. When I entered on to the school board, we showed a budget deficit. I'm leaving my term in November, and we will show a surplus. We have changed the tides there. I've served as on the Governor's Commission for the past 4 years as co-vice chair. He appointed me to that position twice because he knows the leadership I'm able to bring, not just to that spot, but for the whole Commonwealth. And I am eager and I am excited to bring what I have gained through all my work, through my own lived experience, and through serving as a public servant for the past 4 years to this position.
And your response, Mr. Davis.
My opponent's right in one thing. Leadership comes down to accountability. Accountability for your own personal finances. If you can't manage a household budget of $40,000 and file for bankruptcy and move forward and be expected to run a company or a county that's accountable for $534 million per year, we can't run up a tab that we can't afford and then walk away from it. The taxpayers do not have that option. I understand that hard times happen in people's lives, and people do deserve a second chance when it comes to things, whether they lost their job or there is circumstances, medical issues. But the average person under those circumstances aren't running to be the next Erie County executive. We need an executive that's going to look at programs, analyze them, and realize that it's not our money, it's your money in mind.
Dr. Titus, any last rebuttal?
Absolutely. In 2015, my family went through one of its worst periods of its life. I was working 2 full-time jobs. My wife at the time was not working. I had 2 small children. My brother, who was in the foster care system, came to live with us because he needed access to better health care and school needs. We had to make a decision that we had to make in order to keep our family afloat. Since that time, I have been able to grow and learn and pivot. I know my story resonates and is similar to many members and people throughout Erie County. I am not ashamed of what I have been able to accomplish, and I will bring that empathy and that compassion to this role.
All right, Mr. Davis, any final thoughts?
I have nothing further on that. Thank you.
All right, then the next question's for you, and we should get right to it. This is a question that's coming from Jet Radio 1400 for a caller who asked me to ask you to fill in the blank, and then if you could, give us a couple of your thoughts about the reasoning behind it. And the question he wanted me to ask is, who do you believe won the 2020 presidential election?
Well, Scott, this is an easy one. You know, I've sat down with our local clerk of elections, and I am 100% confident that there is no election fraud in Erie County. You know, President Biden, I said on January 6th or January 7th when I announced that President Biden won that race. You know, I wouldn't be putting in the time and the money and taking a year off from my life and my business to do this if I truly believed that this wasn't a fair election. In that hopes, I hope that everyone turns out on November 2nd and casts their vote for the candidate in which they believe in.
All right, Dr. Titus, your response.
My response is I'm glad to hear my opponent say that he knows that Biden won and that we are instilling trust in the mail-in ballot process, that we're instilling trust in our Board of Elections, because this is how we use our voice. This is how we show up, and we get to decide what happens within our county and within our communities. Our voice, our vote, they matter. And we need to do whatever we can to remove any barriers to make sure that everyone gets to use their voice so that they can be heard when it comes to this election process.
Rebuttal or final thoughts on this question, Brenton Davis?
I have nothing further, Sean. Thank you.
Okay, Tyler Titus?
No.
All right, stay tuned. Tonight's debate between Erie County Executive candidates Tyler Titus and Brenton Davis continues after this short break.
Every animal deserves a place to call home.
And a family.
Someone to play with.
And someone to love.
Find the perfect addition to your family on Jet Pet, Wednesdays and Fridays during Jet 24 Action News. Hundreds of animals from local shelters are waiting to be adopted, waiting to come home to your family.
Jet Pet, Wednesdays and Fridays on Jet 24 Action News. Brought to you by Superstore Joe and Auto Express Kia.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
We're a nation of more than just 2 points of view. We're a nation of many perspectives. And now there's a news network that can speak to all of us. Welcome to News Nation.
A network built on facts, without the spin, without the arrogance.
No right-wing or left-wing agendas.
Just delivering common sense news. News Nation.
News Nation. News Nation.
News for all America.
Are you looking for relief from lower back pain or vertigo? Curious about what a percussive massager is used for? Maybe you've heard about cupping and want to learn more. Visit Ask the Professionals on YourErie.com. Aaron Hurdle, Mike Brown, and other experts from Hurdle and Brown Physical Therapy will explain how different techniques and instruments are used to treat various ailments. Find out tips, tricks, and ask your own questions on YourErie.com's Ask the Professionals.
Enjoy a fusion of Southern regional and Caribbean flavors at Pineapple Eddie's Southern Bistro. Amazing dishes are available in our dining room for carry-out, curbside pickup, or online delivery. We are taking every precaution to ensure the safety of our family and yours at Pineapple Eddie.
Thanks for watching Jet 24, your news leader.
Welcome back to tonight's Erie County Executives debate live on Jet 24. The next question will be posed first to Tyler Titus. Tyler, on Facebook, somebody wanted to know what you think the best use of the county's $52 million in American Rescue Plan funding would be. How would that money be allocated? How would those dollars be spent under a Tyler Titus administration?
This is a great question, and one that we've talked about quite a bit out here on the campaign trail. County council and the county executive has laid out their budget for 2022, and where we see it falling down in some areas where they've laid it out in some areas is, the DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion. We see them putting quite a bit of money towards grants for small businesses and entrepreneurs, making sure that the doors are keeping open, that they're getting access to the services that they need. We see an investment within the frontline or first responders, so that the volunteer fire departments have access to grants that are laid out for them. Where I see us laying out this money is building and investing in building an economy that puts working class families first, through infrastructure around roads, bridges, broadband, making sure that we're creating a healthier and safer community, through human services, making sure we're investing and access to quality childcare, making sure those who are our first responders through our public safety department and our dispatch have the tools that they need to carry out their job to keep our community safe. We've got a moonshot moment here. We've got to make sure that the money we're investing is transformative, that the things that are happening are sustainable, and that we're moving Erie County forward together, and where no one is left behind.
Brenton Davis, your plan for the $52 million in American Rescue Plan funding.
Yeah, Sean, so some of that has already been allocated by the Dahl-Kemper administration, the first 26. So ultimately moving forward, we have what's been allocated plus the 26. But I think the important thing, and this is where it's going to separate myself and Dr. Titus, is financial literacy and financial management with my master's in community economic development, is being able to leverage these funds. We can either spend it, the $26 million, and only have the impacts of $26 million, or we can leverage these funds to turn that into $100, $150 million, $250 million, and make sure they're revolving. The four criteria in which I would use for ARP funding as a county executive is: 1, is it transformative? 2, is it generational? 3, is it impactful? And lastly, is it sustainable? We need to make sure, and again, I would agree with this, that this is our moonshot moment. We have one opportunity to get it right, and we can't squander it with an experiment.
Dr. Titus?
What I think is critical for us to also look at is that 80% of the budget that is that we're talking about here is through human services. So making sure that we're looking at the effectiveness and the quality of services that are being provided. I've heard Brenton say a few times now that I don't have the skill set to take on this job. A degree is only as applicable as the use that it has created. I've built my career in human services and making sure that we get out there and we serve the families who are in need, and that we have a county government that is representative of and responsible to the people that it serves.
I think the important thing in this rebuttal is going to be the fact that most of these services in which we're talking about are mandated. So any folks that could worry about cuts or anything taking place, that these are mandated services. Ultimately, the Erie County Executive's role is not that of a social worker, it's that of an executive, to analyze county government, to be an advocate for business, and to work with folks to move Erie County forward, and I look forward to doing that.
Go ahead, Dr. Titus.
The role of the county executive is to make sure that the private and public sector is working forward. The role of the county executive is to make sure we are serving people. That is what the county executive does. It is overseeing and managing the departments across the county to make sure we are out there and lifting up those who are most vulnerable throughout our county so they can then re-enter and live out their most successful, authentic lives. That is the role of the county executive, is to get out there to serve and to be responsible and accountable to the people of Erie County.
Okay, now my question is for you, Mr. Davis, and this again is from social media. Someone asking, and you referred to earlier tonight about your military service and how that's prepared you for this position. But obviously on social media there's been some questions about your length and type of training and service during your military time, and they're asking if you'd be willing to make your records public to clear up any of those misunderstandings.
So like my campaign staff has made, like I have nothing to hide. You know, one of my previous military infantry commanders hosted a meet and greet for me. The Army Public Affairs moderates and maintains overview of my political campaign materials. So I mean, to me, I would absolutely release my records to the media if anybody wanted to challenge those. You know, I've been a lifelong member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post. You know, realistically, the Meadville Tribune actually captured photos of me in the Persian Gulf. If there's any rumors that anybody wants to dispel, I mean, to me, I just take that as kind of a low blow to veterans everywhere when you challenge something so trivial.
Dr. Titus?
I would just kind of echo, I guess, what Mr. Brenton Davis had said there, that I would hope that nobody would ever, you know, insinuate or claim that they have served in a capacity in which they haven't served. Veterans deserve the utmost respect, what they have done and sacrificed for our families, what their families have sacrificed for our country. I would absolutely hope that nobody would proclaim any type of stolen valor.
Mr. Davis, any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Dr. Titus, any thoughts from you? Let's go on to the next question then. And this is again for Dr. Titus. We would like to know your assessment of the job the current county executive did over the last 18, 20 months, given that there was a pandemic that few people had anticipated, and then there's also the concept of running government during that time. Is there anything that stands out to you that you would change if you were in that position to take office, say maybe 18 or 20 months ago?
I think hindsight is always 20/20, and what the Dahlkemper administration had to do is something that no other administration has ever had to do, and that was build the ship as they were sailing out in a stormy water with the pandemic. Looking back, I think being able to support small businesses, making sure that we are doing whatever we can to get that vaccine out as fast as we can, to providing grants for small businesses to keep their doors open, to help them keep the roofs over their heads, is something that I think we all wish we could have done more. But again, so much of what was done in this past 18 to 24 months was coming down through the governor, was coming down through the state level and through a federal level. There was a lot that had to be put together all at once, and as the science evolved, so did that plan. But what I want to make it clear is Kathy Dahlkemper and her administration has set forward, they've set out a plan. I'm not the same person. I am my own person, and my run as the county executive will not be a continuation of the Dahlkemper administration. I respect and I admire the work that she has done, but I am a person who's got my own ideas, my own visions, and I have a plan to move Erie County forward as a whole.
Mr. Davis?
So I think the thing that we learned about COVID, and I would agree with what my opponent had to say, is that, again, I think we need to unite and move forward and not make the COVID-19 pandemic political. I think the Dahlkemper administration was faced with a very difficult issue in which it'd be easy to Monday morning quarterback, but it sure looks a lot different from the field on Friday night when you're actually taking the hits. So I have to give credit where credit is due. Despite any kind of tumultuous relationship the county executive and I have had and how critical we've been, you have to give credit where credit's due. And I think they did the best with what they could. And our health department, Ms. Lyons, and all the folks I met with down there, I think they did a phenomenal job managing a very difficult situation. But I think as the landscape develops moving forward, we need to ensure that we keep our businesses open, keep our schools open. That way families don't have to struggle to find ways to keep their kids at home and attend school, get to work. There's a lot of things that we need to do. Open economies equal prosperity, and we can have both. We can do it safely, and we can do it responsibly.
Tyler, any rebuttal?
Yes, this is the third or fourth time I've heard Mr. Davis use the word unity and come together. When he's really undermining when he is saying here. He told the New York Times regarding to the Biden election, he was going to stock up on guns and ammo and to be ready to go in arms against your government, challenging some of our state reps to fist fights online. He did not just have a disagreement with Ms. Dahlkemper. He called very publicly, started a petition for her resignation. He's very much downplaying the arguments, the division that he himself is not only fanning, but continues to keep going.
Brent, your 30 seconds.
So this is a prime example of the very context in which I'm talking about, schoolyard antics. There was no petition. I sent a letter to Ms. Dahlkemper to resign for crossing state lines and not holding herself accountable during a mandate which she in fact instated. That's beyond us. Moving forward, did I challenge Ryan Bazaar to a fist fight? I challenged him to a charity boxing match in which Mayor Joe Schember participated in. I think that's all in good fun, and I think politicians should put their money or sometimes their chin where their mouth is for charity. This is all just out of context, just like these silly commercials.
Okay, next question to Brenton Davis to start. Hey, let's consider what we're doing here tonight, a job interview for the voters. So I'll ask one of those classic job interview questions. Nobody's perfect. What is your biggest weakness going into this job if you become the next Erie County executive? What would you have to work hardest on?
I think my biggest weakness, what I recognized when I ran in 2017, was this issue with economic development. Nobody really knew what economic development was, and we were kind of just coming around to the idea. So I recognized that as my weakness, and I spent nights and weekends getting a master's degree from Penn State in community and economic development. But I think ultimately I've had to learn that one of my weaknesses very well could be pride. And sometimes you have to look at things, and maybe it's the Twitter account, much like we've seen from the Trump administration. And that's why you need to learn from those issues and maybe think 2 times before you speak, or wait an entire day before you send that email. I think that emotional maturity is a very important thing for our county executive, knowing that we represent everyone.
Tyler Titus.
One of my biggest weaknesses as I go into this is finding a way to shut off some of the stories that I've heard on this campaign trail. I cannot forget the couches that I have sat on. I can't forget the single parents who are struggling. I can't forget the kids that I have sat down with who told me that they didn't think that they mattered, that nobody cared about them. I can't forget the people who had lost their jobs, who had invested their entire life savings and had lost it because they couldn't keep it open during the pandemic. That is what I'm bringing to this table. I'm bringing empathy, I'm bringing compassion, I'm bringing the ability to connect and to move people forward. That is what I have dedicated my career to doing, and what I will dedicate my career as your county executive and after to doing. Erie County deserves somebody at that helm, at that seat, who sees them, who understands their struggle, who wants to help them move forward. It's not, it goes beyond, like Mr. Davis had said, just Democrat or Republican. These are family, these are lives. These are people who are still grieving, who are still hurting during a pandemic. So when it comes to my biggest weakness, it's turning some of those stories off. It's turning some of those stories off.
Mr. Davis.
Well, I think it's apparent that both of us on this stage are running for very different reasons. I think both of us are very passionate about what we do, but ultimately it comes down to what you all think at home, who you think will do the best job serving in an executive capacity with $534 million of your tax money. Who can lead a regional economy? Who can lead our business community? Who can lead our civic community? And who can lead our public community moving forward? And that's up to you, the voters.
And Dr. Titus.
I would agree that it is up to our voters, for our voters to see, a teacher once told me that when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And I believe that Mr. Brenton has repeatedly shown us who he is. And it's our job from now until November 2nd to make sure that we know who the true person on each side and where they stand, and not flip-flopping on answers, but somebody who's going to stand up, show up, stand by their answer, and be consistent with that answer the whole time that they've been a public servant.
Okay, my question is for you, Dr. Titus. Obviously, this campaign is getting some attention and money from outside sources in terms of funding. We saw the report that your campaign has gotten a substantial amount of money from outside sources. Your response to that, and why is this something that should be accepted in politics?
That report that was recently released included the primary data, but let's skip over that. What I want to pull our attention to, the facts of this. Over 2 thirds, hundreds of thousands of people from Erie County across the Commonwealth have given to this campaign. We have shown that 80% of our donors are actually at $100 or less that are contributing to this campaign. What this says is that people believe in what I bring to the table. People believe in the leadership that I have demonstrated. People are excited about the vision that I have for Erie County. I am proud that people through Erie County, across the Commonwealth, and across the U.S. are showing up and are joining into this campaign. It shows that they believe in what we can do. That's an exciting thing for Erie County. I'm proud of the supporters that we've been able to activate and motivate, and that people have jumped in to show that they stand beside me and behind me as your next county executive.
And Mr. Davis, your response.
Well, once again, I would agree with my opponent. When someone shows you their true colors, you believe them. And ultimately, you look at outside money that's pouring in here. The one truth that I know is I've accepted 3 out-of-state donations. 1 from a fellow infantry officer which I served with, and 2 are snowbirds who reside in Florida with their voter registration, but they have homes here. Those are my 3. Otherwise, everything else is local. I don't believe San Francisco or Milwaukee or Seattle should get a vote in Erie County, Pennsylvania. I'm proud to have the support of hundreds of local donors and thousands of local voters in this campaign. I am truly in this as the Erie County candidate for you. It's not about Republican, it's not about Democrat, it's about the party of Erie, which matters.
I would go back to what I said before. Erie County should be excited about the fact that other people are paying attention. They're excited to see what we're going to be able to accomplish here in Erie County. You bring up Milwaukee. That was a county executive, a Great Lakes County executive who has shown his support. What better stamp of endorsement to have somebody else who had this job, knows what this job takes, to say, I believe in you and I believe what you can carry out in Erie County. Again, I go back to being proud that we are able to get this entire Commonwealth excited.
Mr. Davis, 30 seconds if you choose.
I would say that same county executive in question also showed his support in the tune of $850,000 for other progressive liberals across the country. To me, I don't think it matters about where someone else wants to weigh their money in. What's important is these folks do not get a vote here in Erie County. And if there's one thing I know about folks in Erie County is we don't like outsiders coming in, pushing their agendas on our households. If you don't like that yourself, vote for me on November 2nd, the Erie County candidate.
All right, thanks. And this next question goes back to Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, is gender identity an issue in this campaign, and should it be or should it not be?
I personally don't think it should be. I think you should elect your county executive based on who you believe will do the best job. Really, it comes down to experience, leadership, education, who can actually create jobs. It's no mistake that economic development and job creation is the #1 issue of this debate tonight. And I'm the only candidate on this stage that has real-world experience leading at a high level in a government organization across 3 states and 92 counties, encompassing 4,500 troops. I'm the only candidate that's actually created real-world jobs, both union and non-union. I'm the only candidate who can get this done.
All right, Dr. Titus?
I'm running as a parent. I'm running as a sibling. I'm running as a small business owner. I'm running as a public servant. I'm running as my authentic self. I'm running as somebody who has sat again in thousands of houses across Erie County. I'm running as somebody who has served in a public elected position. I'm running as somebody who is showing up, who continues to show up, who continues to bring my full self to every position that I serve in. I'm running as somebody who has worked in county government, who understands county government. I'm running as somebody who's been appointed by our governor to serve the Commonwealth for 2 terms as the co-vice chair. I am running as somebody who has helped family members, individuals, overcome barriers that they needed to get back into the workforce. I'm running as somebody who's bringing all of that to the table. I'm running as somebody who sees Erie County people for who they are and what they have, and running as somebody who brings passion, education, lived experience, work experience to the table.
Brenton Davis, 30 seconds if you choose.
I have no response to that, Sean. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question unless you have more that you wanted to say, Dr. Titus.
Nope.
Okay, next question is to you, Tyler Titus. On your website, you write, I will refuse special tax breaks for ultra-wealthy developers and outside corporate special interests, making sure tax incentives first go to locally owned small businesses. My question is, what does that mean? Are you opposed to LRTA as it exists? Is it something you would like to see changed? What does that mean?
What we've seen with the data, especially as it pertains to LRTA, is that it has not played out the way we envisioned it to play out. The Regional Chamber has developed studies and they've shown out the research to support that as well. When I make that statement, what I am saying is that the tax burden should not fall disproportionately on small business owners and the families, especially those who are on fixed incomes within our county. I am not opposed to tax incentives. Tax incentives, though, have to work for the entire county. They have to benefit the small businesses. They have to benefit the entrepreneurs. They have to benefit the working class families. They cannot only focus on those at the top. They have to make sure that those who are struggling to get by have the same access and the same opportunity to build, to launch, and to be successful.
Brenton Davis.
Well, my opponent said it pretty clearly. Folks are struggling. Folks in the poorest zip code in the nation, upon which my opponent raised taxes not once but twice on the poorest, most struggling zip code in Erie County, Pennsylvania, and the United States. I think an anti-corporation approach is precisely what we don't need. Erie County isn't in a position to scare away jobs, scare away job producers, scare away development. Erie Insurance Exchange has been a great partner and our only Fortune 300 company in Erie County. And look at what's being done with Erie downtown development. It's no secret that my opponent has been what I would call at least skeptical of the efforts downtown. But looking at Erie Refocused and the Buki plan, this is precisely what we need to do. And it'd be very difficult for the private sector to do such an investment. So I'm thankful that we have corporate partners and the jobs and the income that they generate for hardworking Erie County families. A Davis administration is going to turn on the light and send a beacon to the world and say that Erie County, we want your business, we want your jobs, and we want our families to thrive.
Dr. Titus?
Absolutely. Mr. Davis has said a couple times now that we throw up a lot of mud here. When it comes back to this thing about me raising the taxes, what Mr. Davis conveniently has left out of this conversation every time he's brought it up is the fact that I'm one of 9 board members, also coming on to a spot where we're under financial watch on the school district, meaning there was a plan developed by an appointed Republican that said we had to carry out this plan, and if we did not, we risked losing local control, meaning the state would step in and oversee our county or our city school district. So me and the board members did what we had to do to make sure we could stay in control of our school district.
Okay, go ahead. Final rebuttal.
So again, you heard it. But the thing about it is, what I just heard my opponent say is he couldn't influence the board. As the county executive, you're going to have to be able to influence council. You're going to have to be able to influence different business initiatives. But also he said that the Erie School District was under watch. So how exactly is he making the tough decisions when he was told what he had to do beforehand? That doesn't sound like leadership to me. That sounds like holding a place chair.
Okay, we will move on then with the next question. This is for you, Mr. Davis. You mentioned in your last response that as county executive, you would encourage business to come to Erie and you would make it better for them to come here. Are you saying those initiatives haven't happened under past watch? And what exactly would you do to entice those businesses to come here?
That's a great question, but I think it takes a twofold answer here. I think one, we need to focus on small business and organic development. The businesses that already exist here, whether it be acquisition funds or revolving student loan funds, whatever it is that we can help to attract and reverse that brain drain. But ultimately, we have a lot of programs that are new, whether it's the opportunity zones or hopefully the creation of a CRIZ or a NIZ to help garner some investment. We have a lot of different tax incentive financing programs that we can leverage, and I look forward to being an advocate for business and an advocate for Erie County and an advocate for the Erie County taxpayers.
But again, what would you do differently that hasn't been done already?
I think ultimately the first step that we need to take, Jill, is collaboration. We need to knock down the silos. So one example of that would be is in 2 weeks, we're going to host the largest economic development summit, to my knowledge, at Pennsylvania, and the first of its kind that Pennsylvania, New York, and Ohio have ever participated in jointly at Penn State Barron, where we're going to have the state's economic development entities, different Pennsylvania counties, New York counties, and Ohio counties to come together and begin collaborating to create a regional economy that's led by entrepreneurs.
Okay, Dr. Titus, your response.
Absolutely. So when we look at economic development, there's 3 prongs, right? There's the entrepreneurial, there's the expansion, of businesses that are already here, and there's the attraction of new businesses. The work that is already being done through ECRA and the Erie Redevelopment Authority, we can't deny that we absolutely need those elements to happen. We don't currently have access to shovel-ready spaces that are ready for big businesses to move in. We've got to continue to support the efforts through the Redevelopment Authority to make sure that when a place has an idea, that they have a spot that they can grow that idea here in Erie County. The other thing that we have to do is continue to expand and support the businesses that are already here. People invest where they see success in entrepreneurship. They have to see the businesses that are already launching here are thriving. They have to see that there is a talent pool here that they can pull from. That's how we attract new businesses. That's how we build out the businesses that are already here and have success stories that we can sell to the rest of those who are out there in the business world. We have to make sure we are taking care of those that are here and getting the stage ready for those that want to come.
All right, we have time enough for just one more question, and so we're going to get to that right now. This one we'll start with Dr. Titus, which is, you both have successful businesses. One has counseling service, one has construction company. What happens to those if you become the next county executive?
I've set my business up that has many members. Those who I've worked with, they'll continue to serve. They will continue to serve and make sure that those who have been pushed aside by many other systems have access to quality care. My business will continue to thrive by the next leadership that steps in. A good, strong leader is always building up the next person to take over. And I think that's exciting. That's exciting that there will be a new reins, new people stepping into that role to launch and to build out, including with my nonprofit that is serving youth, particularly youth in foster care. That will continue to thrive, and it will continue to have partnerships down in Allegheny County so we can support regionalism. This is exciting, and it's not a scary time at all for our businesses, because this means that we get to just pass the reign and show that we have leadership skills that have trained the next leader.
Mr. Davis.
So to me, I've been full-time on the campaign trail since November of last year. I've been at this 7 days a week, and I've racked up over 22,000 miles on the campaign trail. You know, my businesses are financially solvent. My folks and my crews are adequately trained, and if it wasn't for them, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of them for slinging it in the trenches for me day in and day out and supporting me as I chase this next goal to become the Erie County executive. So I have no worries moving forward. My businesses are going to stay very much alive and continue to create jobs and make investments right here in Erie County.
All right, just enough time for 1 minute closing statements. Dr. Titus, you're first.
Through my personal experience of being born into rural poverty and watching my family struggle, through watching them try to meet the needs of these youth, through my time on the Erie City School Board, where I've been proud, I am so proud of the work that we have been able to accomplish there and the ways that we have been able to change the trajectory. Through my work experience at the county and sitting with families and working with families and seeing those frontline workers, those people who are in there every day working with community members, I'm bringing to you this passion. I'm bringing to you this leadership. I'm bringing to you somebody who is ready to step up, to show you, to create a government that is accountable to you, responsible to just you, the voters. So on November 2nd, from now until November 2nd, I humbly ask that you consider me to be your next county executive so that we can get to work in building an Erie County where no one is left behind.
Brandon Davis.
I think the choice is clear, and I'll leave that to the Erie County residents to decide. Anti-corporate rhetoric and waving a stick at business with threats and anti-business rhetoric doesn't create jobs, that doesn't create opportunity, and that doesn't generate the revenue for all the feel-good programs that are necessary for helping get folks out of poverty and move our community forward. Ultimately, the county executive's role is about accountability. It's about skills. It's about analysis and people management, of which I've done at a high level across 3 states in my military.